Greetings, America, and welcome to the Business Pulse, brought to you by Freedom Chamber, the pro-American business network, online at freedomchamber.net. We encourage you, if you own a business or know somebody that owns a business, to sign up and join us at freedomchamber.net. I am joined by Rod Martin of the Martin Report, rodmartin.org. Welcome in. And Dean Owen. Dean Owen, it's owencpa.com. Dean and Rod, we've got a lot to unpack today. We're also going to be joined by Dave Bratt at Liberty University and do a deeper dive into some of the topics. But let's talk about the GDP. 3% GDP. We've got a trade deal with the EU and Japan. We can also talk about the millions of dollars in blue states that now that illegals are going to be getting off the dime and the roles of states. Dean, let's talk about that real quick, because that seems a topic you were interested in offline.
Yeah, the GDP report is phenomenal. You know, we were stuck in here at 2.5%. 2.5% was our best years. So we're 25 to 33% higher GDP growth than anyone ever expected. That is going to help us, as just like Rod and I have discussed before here, that's going to help us pay off the national debt. It's good for everybody. It's working. The big, beautiful bill is working. We're starting to see results. It takes a while for all this stuff to happen and for everything to get into the economy, but it's working. Everything we talked about it's happening. So, and I'm not an arrogant person. I try to be humble, but at the same time, if I don't say it, you don't know. We told you so. So when we're talking about this stuff, this is a place, the Freedom Chamber is a place you can get honest information that you can count on and you can believe in. You can't get it from the mainstream media.
Well, and to be clear, not only did Dean and I tell you this, but Art Laffer said this, George Gilder said this, Stephen Moore said this, Larry Kudlow said this. We are all in agreement that the big, beautiful bill is primarily beneficial in that it locks in the tax cuts. And in doing that, you've got predictability in tax planning. You've got full business expensing. You've got all these positive things that just unleash the economy. And look, until Barack Obama, from World War II until Barack Obama, the average annual GDP growth rate in this country was 3.4. You know, we're talking about 3 and we're ecstatic because under Obama, it got down to 1.8. And Dean's right, 2 and 2.5 is a great year. No, it's not. 3.4 is just a C. We could do better than that. And if you'll recall from the first term, Trump even talked at one point about, I don't see why we couldn't get to 4%. Well, to be perfectly honest, I don't see why we couldn't get to 4% either. And we've laid the foundation for that with this tax bill.
I equate it to when gas prices were at $4.50, $4.85, $5 a gallon. They got back down to $3.75. People were happy. No, shouldn't be that way. That's just, they got you trained to thinking that 3% is good. No, 4%. Let's go for 4.5%. And let's talk about the $150 billion that have been brought in with tariffs so far. And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Well, and I don't know what that will do to the GDP number in the next 12 to 18 months, but I can tell you this. $10 trillion in new investment from outside the United States into U.S. manufacturing is going to have a big impact. We don't know exactly how much, but it's going to be big. So you couple that with the tax cuts, you couple that with deregulation, you couple that with getting all these illegal aliens off of Medicaid and other welfare. You start freeing up housing so that normal people can afford to live in a decent place. And you're going to see the economy just explode.
And I haven't seen the numbers on it, but I'm really curious is how much money is going to be saved by states when the illegal that are here are no longer here and they're not as a burden on state governments. And there's a lot of money at stake. I mean, the blue states ought to be thanking Donald Trump all day long for saving them so much money. All the sanctuary cities, they ought to be rolling in cash. And, if they're not, well, why not? So it's kind of interesting. Donald Trump is doing with what he's doing is going to help the blue states the most when it comes to immigration.
Well, he actually will, but of course he won't be helping the Democrats there because they have built their empire on this flood of foreign cheap labor and cheap votes and, inflating their census counts so they get more House seats and more electoral votes. And the Democrats are just screaming. There's a reason 21 state attorneys general are suing the Trump administration to keep them from just getting basic data on how federal tax dollars are being spent through Medicaid. They don't want it known, and they don't want the Trump administration to know where to find people to deport them. It's not that it's not good for California's budget. It's fantastic for California's budget. It's really bad for California's single party rule.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you guys for sparking conversations, because my inbox lit up last week at chuck@freedomsquare.com. That's the email address, chuck@freedomsquare.com. We had an email from a lady by the name of Betty. She owns, it's called Betty's Boutique and Bows, and she is down by Savannah, Georgia. And she said, I'm hoping to expand into Ocala, Florida next year. What should I be doing? What should I be planning for? Is Trump really going to do everything he says he's going to do? Talk to Betty one-on-one right now, Dean. Give her what you're thinking.
Hey, Trump, all kinds of stuff gets spewed about him, but he's the easiest guy in the world to read. Listen to him, hear what he says he's going to do, and he's going to go do it. Every time and time again. And the left always screams, again, that's the mainstream media. They've been taken over by the enemy. They're nothing but dark, evil presence. I don't even know why people will let that evil toxin in their head. They wouldn't drink toxic poison and put it in their body, but they'll listen to that news, which is putting that evil toxin in their head. She should plan on greater GDP growth. She should plan on expansion. She should plan on increasing demand. She should probably plan on a little bit higher wages for her employees, because guess what?
I think that's where she was going. Like, what should she plan for down the line with wage increases? What's that going to look like with health insurance, Medicare, all that stuff? That's really, I think, what she was grasping at and looking for.
Yeah, I would anticipate higher wages, especially for the working class and lower income families, because guess what? Those illegals were taking American jobs. Everybody says, well, they're only doing jobs Americans won't take. No, that's not the case. That's a lie.
It is a lie. And it won't just be that. I mean, as I said earlier, it'll free up housing. If you want to see some decent movement on rental properties, this is going to help, because right now we've got 20 million people in the country who shouldn't be here. And do the math on how long it takes to build housing for all those folks, because it wasn't here when they came. So, it's just pricing up housing in a way that is harmful to American families. But I would come back to what Dean said earlier. Donald Trump does exactly what he says. And the media is very quick to pounce on his use of hyperbole. He said he's going to run for a third term. Yes, he did say that to make you chase your tail for about a month of stupid stories that nobody thought would come true, especially Trump. But Donald Trump has been laying out his negotiating strategy and his policy positions in New York Times best-selling books since 1987. He gave us a preview for 13 seasons of the top-rated TV show in America, and these people still can't figure him out. And the only thing I can figure is they don't want to, and they also don't want to do the homework and go back and review all of those things he already told you. My guess is Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin are doing the homework right about now.
Well, Betty, I hope that answers your question, Betty. It was around the bush and back through the front door to the back door. But all in all, Betty should be confident that things are moving in a positive direction in the golden age, and she should be able to hopefully expand her business into Ocala, Florida in the next 12 to 18 months.
One note, I did see something right before we got on about health insurance. Looks like it's going to take a spike next year. United Healthcare came in with some problems, and so it looks like healthcare and health insurance may spike next year. So we need to be planning for that. I know the Freedom Chamber has got some options for alternatives to traditional insurance. There's also health sharing ministries that can be looked at. So those are some ideas that if those insurance premiums are going to spike, I know as a financial space, whenever I'm talking to someone who's going to retire before age 65, we have to help them with finding health coverage. Those are options that we use. They're good options. They need to be looked at and explored. And there are options to traditional health insurance.
Excellent. Betty, hope that answers your question. Thank you so much for the email, chuck@freedomsquare.com. That is where you can ask Rod and Dean a question. Hang on to your heads, kids, because Dave Bratt is going to join the program next. And if you know Dave Bratt like I know Dave Bratt, I know you guys know Dave Bratt, Rod and Dean, he's going to bring the fireworks. So hang on, guys. You're watching The Business Pulse.
Hey, the Freedom Chamber is amazing. I'm so glad that we get to be here on the Freedom Chamber's Business Pulse. This is an organization you should support. It's an organization of which you should be a member. The Freedom Chamber is getting important things done in this country. And honestly, we need spaces for people who believe the sorts of things that if you're watching this, you probably do. We have gone through this extended period of not just canceling individuals, but just boycotting businesses and doing terrible things, debanking. Nigel Farage, who is likely to be the next prime minister of the United Kingdom, was actually debanked by all the major banks in the United Kingdom. And of course that happens here, and we get de-insured and all these terrible things. The Freedom Chamber is fighting for you. The Freedom Chamber is here to make sure that you're protected, that your values matter, they count, and they're in the public square. So I encourage everybody to join the Freedom Chamber.
Welcome back to the Business Pulse, brought to you by the Freedom Chamber, online at freedomchamber.net, the Pro-American Business Network. In the tunnel here, in the cave, in the trench with Rod and Dean, and we welcome Dave Bratt from Liberty University. Dave, welcome into the Business Pulse.
Great to be on, Chuck. Thanks for having me.
Lots to talk about. EU trade deal, Japan trade deal, India getting smacked down with 25% tariffs, GDP's up 3%. Dave, want to get your thoughts on it, then just have a big discussion with you and Rod and Dean about that. Go ahead, Rod. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, well, I think it's the biggest deal ever, like President Trump said. So that's kind of fun fact number one. His biggest trade deal, biggest deal ever. What people miss, right? Navarro came out with the trade charts and all that thing, but people missed, and the press didn't want to report. Bank of America also had a trade chart they put together with one of the big four, Ernst & Young, I think, and the World Bank. So all reputable names. And that chart was of the G20 countries, right? Europe, the European Union's part of that. 80% of world GDP. And the G20 countries, the rich countries, had 200 to 300% higher tariff and non-tariff barriers on us than we had on them. And this has just been missing, right? I mean, if you tell the American people that, they go, duh, well, what have we been doing? So Trump is just very good. It is common sense if you know the facts and you're willing to ask questions that no one's ever asked before. And we were just chatting, offline here. But speaking of which, everybody listening ought to go watch the latest Tucker interview with the Fed expert he had on. He dropped one bomb after the other on the Federal Reserve, right? When it was founded, who was founded by, who owns it. Correlation between Federal Reserve activity and wars, who ran the U.S. and German Federal Reserve banks during World War I and II. Two brothers, you wouldn't know that maybe. But I mean, it's just staggering how we've been left in the dark, right? And then the CIA told him, we're watching you. And the CIA was mad at Japan. He claims the CIA was in on taking Japan down a notch, along with South America and the developing countries through the IMF and the World Bank. I mean, it's not what you've been taught in history class. So I love what we're doing on Freedom Square. Freedom is kind of the key word, and transparency and sharing this kind of information with each other. So thank God for what you guys are doing.
Thank you, Dave. Love your thoughts on this, Rod.
Well, look, Dave's exactly right. No one's been asking the right questions all these years, and it made sense in the beginning because you come out of World War II and all our allies are flattened, and you need to help them stand up, and you need to help them stand up against the Soviets and blah, blah, blah. Well, folks, that's 80 years ago. That's been a while, and the Cold War's been over for 35 years. And it's just absurd that we're still letting them take advantage of us. It is no different than if, you let somebody pick your pocket and you call it a partnership. It's just not. It's not at all. And so Trump is restoring some sanity here. And it's not just the EU trade deal. And Dave's exactly right. That's the biggest trade deal in history. But on top of that, he just got the Europeans to pony up 5% of GDP for defense spending. And that's been a sick joke for years, too. The United States is one ally of 32, and we pick up 70.5% of the bill, which is just insane. These are great big countries with big populations and presumably industries, because they're certainly shipping a lot of stuff to us, and they can't build a tank. I mean, the Germans were literally training infantrymen very recently with broomsticks because they didn't have enough rifles. Britain literally has twice as many admirals as warships. This is absurd. That's not a partnership. Those people are dependents, and Trump is making them grow up.
Yeah, good stuff. And we go back to the 40s, the temper tantrum over Trump's tariffs, and all that filth and garbage and hate and, that says, oh my God, we're running off our allies. We're going to hurt the economy. We're going to send us all into a deep depression. That just tells you how much filth and garbage there is and how little you can trust the mainstream media and how little you can trust, just anything that's coming out of the left. And it's just absolute insanity. And we're seeing it in real time. And yet tomorrow morning, there will be another salacious bombshell of, oh my God, a crisis is coming, and it'll make everybody's get all in a wad about stuff. And it makes me wonder, why do you people even listen to any of that dribble? Are people ever going to learn that it's nothing but filth, hate, it's evil, it's coming from a very dark place, it's nothing but sensationalism, and we're in a good spot. This is mankind's golden age, and we're finally getting the economy right. We're finally getting our tariffs right. We're finally getting things. In June, we had a surplus in federal revenues over expenditures in June. That only happens in April when everybody's sending in their tax checks. How can we not love what's going on and just not go, man, this guy's here. He's the guy at the time we need him, and he's doing what we ask him to do, and he's doing what this country needs. He's doing God's work.
A question for you guys. A part of that trade deal was $600 billion in new investments for U.S. manufacturing. How long does that take to get ramped up and ready to go? I mean, we've got a lot of factories and places that are just dormant right now. Once that money gets spilled into the coffers, what's that look like, and how far down the line can it go?
Well, the crucial thing is it's not just that 600 billion, because that 600 billion is part of about 10 trillion that Trump has racked up in investment coming into the United States just in the last 6 months. And oh wait, there's more, because the Europeans committed to 750 billion in energy purchases just in the next 3 years. You do the math, that weans them off Russia. That honestly probably weans them off the Middle East. They just can't buy much more energy than that. And that largely eliminates the trade deficit there. So all these things are working together, and you're going to end up with a ton of U.S. jobs and a ton of U.S. exports. It's beautiful.
The latest CapEx, capital expenditure numbers I saw was up 12% over the same period last year. And This is just getting started. And CapEx is the best indicator of future economic activity. I mean, how is this not amazing? How are you not wanting to be invested in being part of this and enjoy it and reap the wins and benefits?
Yeah, but I agree with all of it. And it's all going to come down to your question was, what's the lag? And in macroeconomics, capital investment, once it gets going, is about a year to 18 months, and kind of the same with monetary policy. And so that puts you right up against the midterm election. That's the problem here. We still don't own the mainstream media and all this, right? Most of the people are still getting their information from whatever. Wall Street, Rod just reeled off all the stats. So the good thing is the street does get it, right? They don't operate on an 18-month lag in total, right? They operate on expectations of what they really think is going to happen. And so that's the good part. The bad part is we will have to wait to get, prolonged GDP growth kicking in. And that's why I think Trump is so ticked off at the Fed and the interest rate policy, right? The interest rate, if you just look at old, economic static stale analysis, we're kind of at the long run trend as to where the 10-year is and whatever. It's normal. But what they don't take into account is Trump's radical trade policies that we just discussed. And then he's got the immigration policies. And if you lopped off the government spending stimulus piece, right, that's $2 trillion that's fake, right? So Biden had, 4 years of $2 trillion lopped on to a $28 trillion economy. It's like 7%. If you lop that off, we would be in recession, right? So Trump's not lobbing it off. Congress not. We're all being wimps on the spending. It's awful. That's a total misallocation of spending. So that's a disaster. But if I wish Trump would get together with the Fed and say, look, we're going to cut the spending if you'll lower rates. Then you'd have euphoria, right? If we would actually cut some of the government spending, it all goes through the private sector, and then the Fed can lower rates to accommodate that and give us a little juice while we wait 18 months for the 10 trillion that's coming in. And so that's the midterm elections is going to be tough. I hope Texas gets it right.
So, Dave, I think you just need to get on the horn with President Trump and say, look, I'm Dave Bratt. This is what we're doing. Let's make it happen. Jerome, come over here. This is what we're doing.
Right.
Let's make it happen. The other thing I want to talk to you guys about, and I love having the three on you here because you've got brain power. And I will be honest with you, Rod, I did steal those stats and figures from the Martin Report that I got in my inbox this morning at rodmartin.org. I highly recommend you sign up for the Martin Report. The other thing I want to talk about is stimulus checks. Instead of paying down the debt, it looks like there may be a $2,400 stimulus check, rebate check, coming in the mail to families across America. Your thoughts on that? Dean, we'll start with you. You're a CPA. How's that shake out?
For a lot of families, it will be useful. There's some that are suffering. I personally would rather see it go to pay off the debt, but then I understand both sides of that question and that debate. So I understand. But the other thing, though, is a major slap in the face to people who said we're all going to go broke and none of this would work. There's also a political price. Trump will buy a lot of votes with 2,400, and those will go to the GOP. We do have midterms next year. That's a big deal. We need to get a much larger percentage in the House and the Senate. I think we will. The left has gone absolutely insane. They're bat crap crazy on every single topic. So, those dollars coming in, they'll probably be tax-free. I understand both sides of that topic.
Well, if you do some back of the envelope math, 20%, which is what the president said he was considering, 20% of the savings would go to possibly a rebate check. Well, if you divide that up on a per household basis, that's about a $1,400 check. That's not insignificant for a lot of people. And of course, the president's targeting $1 trillion in DOGE savings. Ultimately, if you do that, you're talking about more like 5,000. It adds up.
Yeah, the part I'm worried about is, we're from the federal government. We're here to help. And so when you mention the initial idea, we're going to send checks out to the American people, and boy, that sounds great. The American people. I love the American people. But then you're going to get into all the did these American people, do they have jobs? Are they working? Does everybody get a check? Do they get a check if they hate America? You're going to do they go to illegal immigrants? And then you're going to have the Congress have to vote on that. And guess what our guys on the Republican side are going to do? They're going to cave on everything like they always do. It's really bad, right? They are not representing the American people. So I want to see how that thing is structured. The Fed guy, on Monday, he had his famous phrase that got him in all sorts of trouble had to do with credit, creation of credit in the Tucker interview. And he said he can split the money creation into a part that's awful, which is money creation where the Fed just legitimizes consumption. That's inflationary. But if you legitimize production and the supply side, great. So if you're going to give, I hope they really means test that money, and it goes, like Dean was saying, and it goes to people who are in need, who are working. If it's really targeted like that, great. People, it's as our Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, said, Wall Street, you had your turn. Now it's turn for Main Street.
Well, that's
Absolutely.
all right. I would just add to it that, again, the president's talking about 20% of the savings in the form of a rebate. That leaves 80. So there's a lot of room for money to go to reduce spending, pay debt, really make some meaningful change. And my guess is this is a political calculation. If you hand everybody a bunch of money, they're going to like you more. At the margin, it could matter.
Well, there is a politician here in Chicago, Dr. Willie Wilson, and I'm going to use a local example. Usually when he tries to run for mayor, great man, does a lot of good in the city of Chicago. He will go to CTA stops and pass out $100 bills. Just to say, God bless you, thank you. Doesn't say anything about his campaign, but he's going to be running for mayor soon. So this is kind of a micro look at it as opposed to the macro. But I think there's positives to it, there's negatives to it, and to have you guys on talking about it and discussing it, hope leads to more discussions on people that are watching it. We are up against a hard break here, gentlemen. Dave Bratt, thank you for joining us. Dean Owen, thank you so much for all you do in your CPA firm. Find him online at omcpa.com. And the Martin Report, where I steal a lot of the information and utilize it here to make myself look very bright and intelligent with these three gentlemen. You can find them online at rodmartin.org. This is the Business Pulse, brought to you by Freedom Chamber, the Pro-American Business Network, online at freedomchamber.net. Thank you, America. And gentlemen, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck.
My name is Dean Owen. I'm a CPA. I have a master's degree in taxation and a personal financial specialist. Tax laws are always changing. That's why you need a tax strategist, not just a tax preparer. You need someone to help you pay the least amount of tax legally. Because if your business and retirement tax planning is not tax smart, it's probably tax dumb. Let's fix that today. Call me. Let's disinherit the government and not your kids. That's what my team and I do. This is who we are. I'm a combat veteran, unapologetically American, unapologetically pro-God, pro-life, and pro-Second Amendment. If those are the values you seek in a tax and money advisor, call us. Again, let's disinherit the government and not your kids. We're not afraid to share our values, and we share them with you.